Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering a divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. Today, collaborative divorce attorney Camille Milner is talking with a divorced couple that used the collaborative divorce process about their experience.
Well, this is Camille Milner, and I want to welcome all of our listeners to the Respectful Divorce Podcast and tell you that I'm very excited today that we have Arvind, Ethan, David, and Janine Berridge as our guests, and they have been a couple who have experienced a collaborative divorce, and we are excited to hear from a couple that is actually engaged in that process. So thank you both for agreeing to be with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Happy to be here.
It's asking a lot for a family to open their private experience up to the public. There is a need, and what you are doing is building a tapestry of information for people that will be paying it forward in a way no one has been able to do before. So thank you for that.
Honestly, when we were approached, and even before we were approached, I was thinking about sharing our experience with others. And we actually started getting approached by other couples to ask about our experience in other couples in private. And I started thinking about this as less about, yes, wanting to help others, but honestly, a sort of duty and a way that I can make an impact by sharing our experience, because I do believe you don't know what you don't know. Exactly. And there was a lot we did not know, and there's a lot now that we do know, and we're very grateful to have learned from the professionals around us. And I think for me personally, I was willing and open to sort of talk more publicly about this, something that's very personal. And there's one other person that's not here today, our daughter, and what a wonderful opportunity for her in the future to hear about our experience as her parents.
When we were going through our separation and then our divorce, we were reasonably open about it within our social group. And we were very keen that, I mean, it took a minute. We didn't tell everybody all at once. But by the time, we sort of, through increasingly concentric circles, did share. And I remember we had a big discussion about posting on social media about it and wanting to be clear to the world of our friends, not the public world, but the world of our friends and families, what we were doing and why. Because it just seems that it's one of those things that, when you get married, there's this huge fanfare and everyone's around you, and then divorce becomes sort of a dirty secret that no one wants to talk about. And that seemed to us ridiculous. All the people who were in our lives while we were married are still in our lives, and we needed them to have shared information so that there weren't lots of awkward secret conversations happening and whispering and friendships being divided and who was going to get invited to Christmas and all this sort of thing.
We had a couple that came in and they said, partway through, how do we let our friends and family know? Because they naturally will feel this primal need to take sides. And we don't want them to. We want to maintain those relationships after we are divorced. And so they did something like the holiday letters that you all get from different people updating what's going on for the year. And what they said in that was just profound. They said, this is between us. We will ask that you not take sides, that you not say anything about our spouse, and certainly not say anything disparaging about our spouse in front of our children or to anybody else, because we want to maintain these relationships. And they taught us so much, and I'm sure you taught your team so much. We learned from every family that goes through this.
We started sharing, it's come to the end of our successful 10-year marriage. It's not come to the end. It's a new evolving family unit, and we started to recreate and reimagine, I suppose, our own language around our separation. And we did, like I think any we are these type of people. As soon as we'd sort of made that decision, we ordered a lot of books and, tried to seek help and support. But we started realizing that there was certain cultural norms and language around separation and divorce that we chose to reject. And we needed to create new language for ourselves, for our daughter, for our friends, school teachers, and really did try and design it in a way that felt authentic to us.
Yeah, so we never talk about our marriage failing, or Etta certainly doesn't come from a broken family. And we never talk about each other as exes. We talk about each other as co-parents.
I don't like to refer to someone by what they used to be. I like to refer to somebody by what they are now. And so Arvind is my co-parent, and that's the role we have in each other's lives. But people like to say, the ex and then there's certain sort of, weight to what that is. And it's been a journey educating other people around that too, and very kindly correcting people. Very.
We drafted something that went out on social media.
And we posted at exactly the same time, tagging each other in. We wanted to be a united team, not just externally, but internally. And obviously our collaborative divorce team saw a lot and experienced a lot of the vulnerabilities that we went through. And they helped us and they supported us a lot in what our goals were, and then how we could put that into action.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying, it's not like our divorce was super easy or super without conflict. It was certainly on the amicable side of the spectrum, but it still took almost 2 years, and partly because we were very busy doing other things. But it had its flashpoints, it had its contentious pockets. It's not even just the sides, as in picking between us. There's another side that people take, which is stay together or thank God you're breaking up. When you start telling people, you get the, oh no, you guys are great, you should make it work. Or you get the, oh no, oh great, I never liked him anyway. You get, people tend to get one of those two things, because people feel the need to take a binary position on something that is not binary, on something that is, intensely nuanced.
That's a brilliant way to put it. So one of the questions that I've got is, how did you find collaborative?
So we got recommended to a mediator, and it became clear maybe in 2 meetings that we weren't ready. We hadn't done enough thinking. I think I'll speak for myself. In the first one, I think I said something fairly ridiculous like, is there something that's not divorce that we could do?
We were still trying to hold on to, well, how do we continue to be a family unit? And so it felt like it just felt too final. Something I love about collaborative divorce is that you get your, we have a family therapist coach who works with you. And we really needed that. We needed to figure out I would say with any separation divorce, there's the practical, logistical, and there's the emotional. And sometimes you have, you've got your own personal therapist maybe that you're talking to, and then you're going through maybe litigation on the other side. But what's so wonderful about collaborative is that you have someone to support you as a unit. And I say unit because it really does put, for us, we had, our daughter was 3 when we separated and is, now 6. And it puts the family unit at the center and really helped us navigate. And so I think that when he recommended actually seeking a family therapist coach, Stacey, and it was our work with Stacey that then helped us get to collaborative.
Yeah, he essentially was like, yes, go talk to a family therapist as your next step. He said, I don't think you're ready for me. Come back to me when you're ready.
But we had what we call knowledge gaps between each other. So Arvind has a background in, law and business and had knowledge and information that perhaps I didn't have access to, and it just would take me time to catch up. And what Stacey explained to us is that with collaborative, you get your own lawyer who is really working as a team I was like, this sounds great. You get a full team with expertise and knowledge to support you through your journey, whose interests are not winning for the individual involved. They're winning, what I would say, for the team, for the unit, for the family. And that is the goal.
It's a journey just to get to, I want a divorce. Then it's a further journey to get to doing it. We needed the process. Now, I'll be honest and say there were times when we probably had different views as to whether the process was going at the right speed.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would say that 2 years it took to us to sort of get from where we were going was actually, I like the way you use the word gradual. It takes time for your emotions to catch up with the practical, then the practical to catch up with the emotional. And I think the time is actually to help you get to a point where you are taking those sort of incremental steps to evolve your life.
I think what you say about the practical catching up with the emotional catching up with the practical is exactly right. And also, none of this is linear, but it spirals and you both positive and negative. You go forward, you go backward, and then you can be out of sync with each other. There were times when I felt it was too slow, or you felt it was too fast, and vice versa. So yeah, look, I think it has to take the time it takes.
And so you do need the time because emotions are fraught. There are times when one person is feeling more vulnerable than the other, and I think that it allowed us that time frame to get stability through the process.
Where you're both on solid footing.
Exactly.
Not just one of you and another one not today. And sometimes I explain it to clients that are in the collaborative process like a pear on a pear tree. I don't know if you've ever picked a pear, but if it's not ready to be picked, you're not going to be able to take it off of there short of a knife.
Yeah.
But when they're really ripe and ready, you barely touch them and they will fall off the tree.
And if you wait too long, they're rotten and mushy.
Yes, yes. And one of the things that our neutrals have gotten so good at around here is they do their best to say to couples, this is great work you're doing, but we know you have a limited amount of resources. Is this how you want to spend your time? Or do you want to do more of this work offline, not in the group meeting?
Yes. And actually we took a pause, I think, and did a little bit more work with Stacey on the emotional because some of the practical probably wasn't moving as quickly as it could and I think at that time I was getting stuck with some of the heaviness of the finality and the logistics.
Well, it can be overwhelming. And sometimes if you just take the time to go offline and deal with the emotional part of it, then the legal and logistical part can accelerate in a surprising way.
I think that did happen. And the one thing you said, Camille, which made me smile is you said that, some of your neutrals say, you're doing a really great job. They're cheerleaders for you.
Yes.
Sometimes I left, those meetings feeling like, yeah, we're getting there. We're doing a great job. And you need that,
Well, and that's one thing that I think is such a shortfall of litigation and even mediation mediation is great, but to me, it does not have the added value that the collaborative process has because I think litigation, the courtroom, is not built for the family system.
No.
And we are a system. We are all interrelated and will be, especially if you have children, for the rest of your lives. So it needs to be dealt with from a family systems approach. And that sounds like what your team brought to the table to support you from beginning to end.
We were also very clear that our daughter and her well-being and happiness was at the center of it. Mm-hmm. And that was just never a question for us. I mean, if we were getting divorced in part to ensure her happiness and well-being. And so that was an easy guiding light for everybody.
Yes, and actually that brings a really good point, which I don't know whether this is consistent with other collaborative divorces or whether it was just ours, but remember we did the values work and the guidelines and we had a mission statement.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time we were like, we're doing a mission statement? Like, this should just be practical, like, show me paperwork. And And we did, and it helped us ground what our objectives were, mutual objectives. We went back and forth on wording, the language on that mission statement. And it was funny because at the beginning, you're sort of a little maybe dubious. And by the end, I think I wanted to do a mission statement to kind of close out the process, almost sort of a rewritten version of our marital vows, these are now the new vows we make to each other as co-parents.
That's beautiful.
We weren't done. We were largely done around the time of Janine's 40th birthday, which is also our daughter's 4th birthday. They're a few days apart. And so there was a big party planned for that. But then we ended up having a lot of friends and family flew in from all over the world. And so we ended up having what had the format of a rehearsal dinner the night before, where, 30 people, 25 people had a meal. And, it was, the party was for Janine's birthday, but the dinner the night before, we went around the table and we toasted each other and we invited our friends and family to support us through this next stage, and everybody gave a speech.
And then something we did, which is actually slightly amusing, because was when we celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. And essentially we were,
it's also our 10-year wedding anniversary was also our legal date of separation.
Legal date of separation. And we used that to go out to dinner. And to your point, Camille, about, whether the language around failure or success, we talked about some of our highlights and some of the wonderful things. And a lot of it revolved around our daughter, but we actually took off our rings and we made, a ceremony of it. We ordered champagne, and the server actually asked us what we were celebrating.
Yeah. The server got very confused. The server saw champagne and 2 rings and jumped slightly to the wrong conclusion.
And we explained we were celebrating the end of our marriage. And I think she thought it was a joke, and we sort of had to explain that, no, we really are. And I think to your point, Arvind, it wasn't all like this. We could sit here for many, many hours talking about all the challenge, the difficulty, and the hurt that is involved. But all to say is you've got to have those moments for us, I think, help.
Because look, there'll be people listening to this who will go, these two are just weird, because so many people's experience of divorce is so acrimonious. The process definitely helped us, no question. The process helped us preserve what we wanted to preserve. At the same time, though, you have to want to preserve it. And we were always clear that we were going to keep being a family and keep being co-parents and keep being friends. And we hang out and we go on double dates and our partners are our friends. And that's not everyone's experience. And it wasn't predestined that it would be our experience. I am not a conflict-averse person. I'm okay with conflict, and it's not like we're these entirely touchy-feely Californian, woo-woos.
Which definitely our Brits friends listening to this will say we are.
We'll think so. But actually, we hear more stories, I think, or at least as many stories, of divorced friends who remain a relationship and a friendship, particularly obviously with their kids involved. And I'm always just so baffled when we hear stories that are 5 years post-divorce, 10 years post-divorce, and the people are still angry with each other. You just sort of think, what can someone do that a decade later you're still angry? Or what, of course, they think there are answers to that question. I can think of some things people can do, but that you haven't processed and together close the book on them just seems to us bizarre, but you need a process that gets you there.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I now ponder, I have no doubt we are where we are today. Some of this, unity that we are discussing as co-parents because of the process, the intentional and honestly sort of nurturing process that we went through. And I don't know where we would be to this day if we had gone through litigation.
Certainly, if you take the worst moments of our divorce and the moments where we were fighting and we weren't agreeing, and if you imagine that the people around us were motivated to stimulate that fight
Yes,
rather than to cool it down,
absolutely.
then
It would have escalated.
Yeah.
And I think when you get hot-headed, which you no doubt do, or you get stubborn, or your ego flares up, or you forget why we're here. And, as Arvind said, our goal always was maximizing, the joy and the love in our daughter's life. If you forget any of those moments, if you have someone who's on your team that's essentially agreeing with your hot-headedness, it would accelerate it, I think, and it would amplify and could end up in a very different place to where we are now.
Yeah. And when you are not being rational, because at the heart, at the low ebbs of a divorce, you're not being rational. You want people around you to edge you back towards rationality and calm.
Yes, because you've set the mission at the beginning and you've said what your goals and objectives are, and you're aligned on that in the cool moments.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can remind you of that.
Yeah. But any system where you set up the incentives for conflict, you're going to get conflict.
Right.
You set up the incentives for collaboration, you'll get collaboration. It's in the title, collaborative divorce versus, antagonistic or litigation. It's in the title. Like, it's not complicated. If you imagine any other process, like you want to buy a house, would you like to buy a house antagonistically, or would you like to buy a house collaboratively? You're sending your daughter to school. Would you like her to go to an antagonistic school?
It will tickle you to hear this little story at the Harvard Negotiation Project, or the Project on Negotiation. One of the professors there said, there is no other business negotiation you would ever go into where you sit in and start insulting the other side. That would be idiotic. You would never make a deal. But in family law, because there's so much emotion involved in it, that's often what happens. And it's because there's so much emotion involved in it. When you think about a child, I think what you all have modeled for your child is incredible, because she's been able to make this transition gradually. The collaborative process enables the family and the child or children to begin the healing process simultaneously with the divorce. And the collaborative process, part of what's built in are these opportunities for you to step back and breathe and go back to those better angels, so that when you are finishing your case, you are well on the way to the healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree with that. It's not, I wouldn't say I was raw at moments through the process because of the ups and downs, but I honestly remember it actually felt like a closure in a really healthy way. And I remember, our closure was, and I think this is why we were approached by a financial neutral about this. Our lawyers, our independents were crying, saying they had, what was it, the words around meeting a couple haven't met enough,
Yeah, so your lawyer, who was lovely, Matthew was lovely, but he's he's not an emotional chap. As we finished, he teared up and he said, in 30 years of doing this, I've not seen another couple put their daughter and their family's best interests as centrally and held them as integrally as you guys. It was nice. It felt good. It felt good when we finished. It felt good because we thought, okay, we've done this difficult thing well. We've done it well in spite of moments where we might each have been tempted to do it badly. We came out of it feeling, okay, we've learned something. And yes, it wasn't like we knew we were never going to be down and walk away from each other, because we have a child, and we want. And to your point about the healing for her, for any child of divorce, I think there's a lot. I think that's quite a complicated thing, because I think her process was marching on a different timetable to ours, in part because we staged it quite slowly. So we were always a bit ahead of her. So she was not aware. I think she was aware when we were fighting, obviously. And that was the thing we, never wanted her to be scarred by. So that was the stimulus to stop fighting. But then I think she had this long period where she thought, oh, they're great because they don't fight anymore. And of course, that was actually the period where we had decided to end our marriage. And then when we told her that we were getting separated, but that we were still going to live together, that was sort of stage one. And stage two was the nesting. And all that, she had a very happy time.
She did okay with that, because that was going to be one of my questions. What do you think her experience was at the different stages that you went through?
I think when we were fighting, that was difficult for her. I mean, she was very young, but she was conscious that mum and daddy were not speaking kindly to each other.
And I'm sure your team told you that all the science says it's not the divorce per se that's damaging to children. It's the conflict around it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can have conflict within a marriage and you can have conflict as co-parents. So
Yes.
it's about what can we do to minimize conflict.
Yes.
Yeah, so the conflict stopped once we had made the decision. So I think then she had quite a positive experience of mum and daddy don't fight and are nice. And maybe are a bit sad. I think she was aware we were a bit sad.
We always wanted Odetta to feel in our process with us. She's not the last to know about anything. We're helping her along with the process. And so
yeah, we told her first before. I mean, I think you were talking to your parents.
Well,
a few good friends.
It was incremental because I actually remember the first step was Mama moving into the spare bedroom. And it's actually a funny story because I was so terrified about it. And of course, you always think from the adult perspective. And so, we had the spare room and I said to her, I think that, I really like that spare bedroom. And, we decorated it. And I said, I think that maybe Mama would quite like to move into that spare bedroom. And she screamed, no. And my face just dropped because I thought in my mind, she understands like Mama and Daddy separating. Turns out she just wanted the bedroom and the 4-poster bed for herself. And she said, I want that bedroom. And I had such a sense of relief and a sort of internal chuckle because I realized like, oh, this is just the first step. And I'm not looking at it that was the first time I thought, look at it from her perspective. Everything is about abundance, not splitting and separating. So the idea of more. So Odetta now has 2 homes and we never call the homes Mama and Daddy's homes. We never wanted her to feel like she is going back and forth between 2 homes. What she is doing is we use the street names. So she has 2 homes and they're both hers and are both toys. And we give her some agency around what goes where in terms of her toys. And we don't say the word step parent about anyone, and that's because she identified from listening to fairy tales, why is the stepmother always mean? And then we went through all the friends we know who are essentially these wonderful, step parents, and we decided to change that language to bonus because everything good happens with a bonus. And parents come with bonus grandparents, bonus cousins. Everything was about abundance, and the more people that love your child, the better.
Yeah, and she, to this day, she'll say, I have a bigger family than anyone. I have so many cousins. I get so many presents because of so many grandparents. She quite likes all that. And that's been very lovely, actually, to see because, our parents live quite far away. We're immigrants. So she doesn't see her original or biological grandparents as much as she might. But now she's starting to see, my partner Alison's parents. She's looking forward to meeting David's parents. Like she's starting to talk about and attach to those people.
And it sounds like all that just gives her more security.
It does. But to say one thing about the pace being different. So I think we thought this was going great. And because we had managed it, 2 homes, abundance, I don't think she'd ever heard the word divorce. She knew we weren't sweethearts anymore. She knew we weren't together anymore, but we were still a family.
And that we didn't have romantic love, but we had familial love for one another.
Yeah. I don't know, about 6 months or 9 months after we were in separate houses, she started getting some anxiety around going back and forth. And she started not liking that. And it didn't last very long, and we were able to talk about it. But it was interesting, sort of just the delayed impact came. Mm-hmm. It came when we were fine, and we were dating other people, and we were in a good place. But suddenly it hit her that this was forever, that mama and daddy were never going to live.
But how wonderful that we had more capacity to support that.
Absolutely.
Because
you were secure on your own feet at that point, so you could give her the support she needed.
And I must say, to go back to obviously why we're here today, talking about collaborative divorce, is that some of that foundational work was done in sessions with our collaborative team before new partners were even really, on the scene. And
can you tell us just a little bit about what you mean by that foundational work that helped this?
Yeah, so we actually worked with Stacey, our family coach, around, how are we going to align and agree on when is the best time to introduce a new partner to a child? Because you hear these horror stories of a child coming back to their one parent and saying, I met somebody in our home today, and it's, that it wasn't a line front. And just as an example, we'd sort of decided we always want her to feel confident that we know what's happening in her life and each other's lives.
Because that will make her feel secure.
Feel the security.
Yeah. She's never a messenger. She's never a repository of secrets. She's never making discoveries that we, So in our parenting, plan, we included sort of guidelines rather than super hard rules around how long we would be seeing someone before we introduced them to her, that we had to feel sort of confident and certain that it was a long-term relationship. We talked about not just the introduction, but then when sleepovers could happen, when moving in could happen.
It enabled you to be a united front.
Yep.
So it didn't accidentally turn into something antagonistic.
And we've actually bounced that off each other, because she'll share with the other co-parent how she's feeling, because she feels maybe a little like, well, I can't say this to daddy, or I can't say this to mama. And so we'll give each other feedback and go, oh, I think she's ready, actually. She's been, it's sort of being guided by her and how she feels to a certain extent, but we're able to sort of identify that when she's, with the other co-parent. And I do think that the strength, that you've mentioned the word strength, united, secure, I think we are that today because we're co-parents and not.
No, if we're still married, we'd be doing this
husband and wife.
Much less well.
So, that's why it's complicated to see, this is the outcome of going through the process that we have gone through.
I'm really where we've ended up, and of course, it's an ongoing journey. We haven't ended up anywhere, but where we are now is not only the overall dynamic is great. I've seen we parent better, I think, as a result. There's a thing that people talk about as an irony of divorce, that your partner starts becoming all the things you wish they could have been when you were together after a divorce. But in our case, I don't think that's a sad irony. We feel like we've enabled.
Yes, you helped each other get there.
I hope that our experience today may help others be more open to sharing their experiences, because we were very fortunate to come across collaborative divorce through the way that we did. Yeah. And it's not been the case for many other people who perhaps weren't aware of it. So
sadly, yes. Well, you all are amazing and inspiring. And I can never tell you how much I appreciate your sharing this journey with me.
No, and thank you also for the chance to relive it a little, which sounds a weird thing to say because it wasn't all pleasant, but it's nice to reflect on it and to see what it actually, I think, achieved for us. Very nice.
Well, and when I say you are going to be inspiring to your daughter as a teaching moment, statistically, statistics have gone down a little, but it's still out there. And so it's going to teach this next generation there is a peaceful way to approach this.
No, it's been great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for the Respectful Divorce Podcast. This important programming note: Divorce with Respect Week is coming up March 3rd through 9th. During Divorce with Respect Week, you can talk with lawyers, divorce coaches, and divorce financial experts for free to learn more about the divorce process and your options. Simply go to divorcewithrespectweek.com to find professionals near you. Divorce with Respect Week is March 3rd through 9th. For more information, that's divorcewithrespectweek.com. And remember that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.